Alright, the next step would be to drain all your fluids, your oil, your coolant. The FS or 626 engine has about 3 or 4 quarts of oil. And, probably, well, since it's been sitting for so long, it's probably all in the pan. I have a 10 quart jug for my oil, and I have about a 15 quart pan over there for the coolant, but we'll get to that in a second. I recommend you have some latex gloves so that you don't get your regular work gloves messy. Not that they're not supposed to get messy in the first place, but if you can avoid spilling oil on them, use the latex instead. Well, 19 millimeter is just barely too big. It's got a little bit of play on it. And 18 millimeter won't fit. And 11/16 won't fit. So I'm just going to use a 19 millimeter. Your drain plug, over the life of the car, might get swapped out by some mechanic who messes up the threads, which happens more often than you want to believe. Yeah, that can happen. So your drain plug might be a little bit different. Crap. Okay, I could probably get it with a ratchet. Might be a good idea to use a little extension on it, just so that you have a little bit of travel to play with. And my arm is right underneath, I know you can't see it, but it's right underneath the rotor, which is like my worst nightmare. Okay, situate your drain pan right underneath of it, and then my hand's gonna see if I can just spin this out. I don't think nope, that's not gonna work. There we go. A little bit on, but that's what the gloves are for. And since I'm going to be draining all the fluids out, I'm just going to leave that sit, I don't know, maybe about 10-15 minutes, just to make sure every last drip is out that I can possibly get out of it. Because there's a possibility that I'm going to have to remove this oil pan and replace the gasket. I don't know if they're going to have that in stock at a local auto parts place. God, I hope my head wasn't in the way for all that. But we'll see. It's draining good. Yeah, it might be wise to make sure your cap is tight first. Oh God. Well, it's only a couple drops. Next step is to drain the coolant. Now, the coolant is on the driver's side, US version. Yeah, there's a little, what's called a pep cock, something cock, over here with a little drain tube. Now, I'm guessing, never done this before, that you just turn that drain tube and the coolant should start running out. Well, my petcock seems to be seized. Your only other option after that would be to remove the lower radiator hose. The lower radiator hose is low, but it's not lower than this. So you're still going to have some in your radiator, some old coolant, and I want to try and get all the coolant out of here. I can flush the system, but I would rather use this. I mean, that's what it's designed for. It's the lowest point in the system. This is where having a manual really comes in handy. 1994 626 MX6 manual. One thing that it says is, I am correct, that is for the coolant, but you're supposed to remove the radiator cap first. Would you just remove yourself? There we go. Okay. Not bad. Yeah, there's no coolant there, and it looks kind of milky, kind of rusty. If you want to know what the petcock looks like, just find your tube right there and follow it, and directly at the head of that tube is your petcock, and that should twist, and it's not twisting, so we're gonna have to figure out a way to fix that. Oh, there we go. Oh, what the fuck. Oh my god, that is a horrible color. Okay, I did get it going. It did take some extra pressure, I guess. It is a screw or a bolt. It's threaded, let's just say it's threaded, and it runs counterclockwise to loosen it. You probably have to turn it about 3 or 4 turns before you start getting any more out. Now you could take off the whole thing and just let it all splash out, but it's splashing as it is with this much, and it's going to take a while for this to drain out, so I guess I'll cut that part. When it was first starting to drain out, it looked like chocolate milk. Rusted coolant. Now it's flowing out, looks like water. It's not really green. Doesn't really look that much like coolant. It looks more like water. That might be why. I put a whole bunch of distilled water in it, and I'm guessing after sitting for 6 months without remembering to put glycol in it, it started rusting. Enough to be an issue, and that's my fault. Coolant drain plug does work. Use it. Alright, next step is going to be removing this coolant rail. There are 2 bolts on top, and I believe 2 bolts on the bottom here. Part of that coolant system runs along here in front of the engine. And I did a bad job explaining what that was for in a previous video. These 2 pipes are associated with the bypass system. Now, what the bypass system does is, okay, here's your thermostat. When you first start up the engine, this thermostat stays closed. So the coolant does not get through to the engine. This makes your engine heat up much faster. And that's for winter conditions. Here in Florida, not a big deal. Up north, you probably want your engine to get up to temp faster if you're in the snow or ice or whatever. So once that engine gets up to temp faster, the thermostat will open and allow coolant. Now, coolant is still being circulated through your car via these 2, let's just call it an inlet and an outlet hose. So coolant is being circulated around your engine, bypassing your engine, but hitting all of your other components, including the heater core and everything, coming back. Then once your car gets up to temp, this thermostat opens up, and then coolant is released to run and then cool down your engine. Remember, you don't want to lose coolant, and I'm guessing that there's going to be a lot of coolant in this rail. So stuff a rag under there. Just do the best that you can. There's not a lot of room under there. I would recommend doing the bottom first, just because they're a little bit harder to get to. Okay, I'm about to pull the coolant rail away from the side of the head, and this is the first time I've done this, so you will see what I see when this happens. Looks like there's a fairly large gasket here. I'm going to try and save that. Looks like it's in pretty good shape. That's neat. Alright. While removing this coolant rail, you'll notice there's no coolant that leaked out of here. Not even a drop. So, that means a successful evacuation of all coolant from the system. And now that that's unattached, you can go at the distributor. Okay, this part over here is part of the head, and this is part of the distributor. So you can either make a notch here or use one of those white pens you can pick up in an auto store, but you can also pick them up at Home Depot or whatever. A lot of mechanics use white grout pens. Mark that, mark the alignment, the same as you would mark the alignment on your cam gears. Decided to pick up a little touch-up paint. And this comes in a pen applicator, so I'm going to see if that makes a good white marker. Picked up natural white Toyota. About the only Toyota part I want in my car. Thank you. No, I'm just kidding. Toyota lovers, please don't come find me. I know you will hurt me. liking that. So let's chisel. Chisel, meet distributor. Distributor, meet chisel. It's not a meat chisel, it's a chisel. How's that? That's not too bad. I think I can find that. That's not bad at all. And it's very unobtrusive, out of the way. I like that. Let's go with the chisel instead. Okay, now you have to get the distributor harness off. There's a clip on this side that you press down towards the end right here. But trying to remove this with just your hand, this thing is pretty tight, so I've got a screwdriver. You can pry it up a little bit. You can see at one point it was loose, so they added a piece of tape on this side to snug it up. So that's why it's so snug. Yours might not be like that, but mine is. So just a tip in case you need it. One bolt holding it down, and that's this. That's a 12 millimeter. Loosen that up. While I have this opportunity to show you how your distributor works in conjunction with your cam, I might as well take the opportunity. Here's the end of your cam gear. Now, later model 626s that have coil packs don't have a distributor with a gear. As you can see, this cam has a gear on the end, and this distributor has a gear on the end. And when the cams turn, this turns, and that's what dictates this rotor moving and firing. In order to remove the distributor, you kind of see how these threads are angled. You have to twist it as it comes off, which means that alignment mark is going to be very important when you go to put it back on. You want to make sure that those marks line up exactly. You want to be exactly on. Now, you can adjust it a little bit here. You see how this is an adjustable bracket, like so. That's so you can advance or retard your timing a little bit. The 93 to 97 can adjust timing a little bit, firing timing. Whereas the 98s to 02s can't, because it's all electronically controlled. And don't forget your all-important baggie that's labeled Distributor. As you remove the distributor, you'll see what I mean by the gears. That's how all of that's connected. And that is oiled up. And you see this little O-ring right there. You want to make sure that that stays in good shape, because that will prevent oil from leaking out of your distributor. And sometimes you can get oil leaks there. Actually, that was a recent topic on the Mazda626.net forums, where someone needs to replace that because it's leaking out around the distributor. So keep that in mind. There is your distributor. Nope, I guess that would help to, and I've got one hand here. Ow, 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 ow. This wire right here is your high tension lead. What you'll hear in the UK is that, well, I need new high tension wires. Well, I mean, you could call all of your spark plug wires high tension wires, but technically there's only one high tension lead, which is this short one that goes to the top of your ignition coil. Got the distributor out, coolant rail. What could obviously be next? Alright, here's the loosening sequence for your camshaft bolts. 1, 2, then you go to the cam gears, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's basically a spiral, counterclockwise spiral. The same thing goes for your exhaust side. Now the head bolt sequence is much different. From there you start inside and then work your way out. Oh, how am I supposed to do that? I can't get a socket down in there. I'm screwed. I'm screwed. Alright, after 1, 2, I got stuck on 3. My socket is too tall to fit in here. Alright, I figured out what I had to do. Unfortunately, my other ratchet, the 3/8 ratchet, was too big to fit on here. But my 1/4 inch, which requires this tiny little adapter, is a complete cylindrical barrel. So there's actually just enough room to fit it on this screw and break it and turn it. So you might have to do that depending on your socket set, what you're having to work with. You could also use a wrench, but my attempts at using a wrench failed because there's just not the right amount of space to get back in there. So let us continue. Now is a good time to see how your cams are aligned, all of your marks over here where we have the cams aligned, the cam gears aligned. And you should probably take video or pictures. Since I have a video camera, that's what I'm going to do. The end of here does in fact have those little marks that you can line up. Unfortunately, they're 180 out of what I have set, so that's not really going to help me much, is it? Unless they're not supposed to be like that. Maybe these are 180 out. That would be a good question. Aren't? I would assume that these are supposed to be straight across from each other, and they're not. So I don't know anything about cams, so you guys will have to tell me if that is going to be an issue. But the marks line up. Well, I mean, I rotated them. I rotated the crank a little bit so they don't line up anymore, but you get the picture. Alright, after you get these loose, you can just twist your ratchet like so. Come out a lot faster this way than using the thumb method or any other method that I know, because this is pretty darn quick. And since they're all oiled up, they just slide right out. Okay, in order to get these journals out, just take your mallet, rubber mallet preferably, just give it a couple taps on each side, and these will come loose. To get this last journal off, you have to put your screwdriver in here and slowly and very gently pry it out. So. Alright, once you get the all the bearings off, there's a place for a socket right here, or a wrench, and just give that a nice turn until it unseats itself, basically. Lift up on this side, and then you can manipulate the wheel. There you go. After the cams and the cam journals are out, this is what you're left with. Cylinder 2, cylinder 3, cylinder 4, a little bit of additional gasket material there. So, looking pretty good so far. Teardown's begun.